Hey there, welcome to my channel. My name is Tiffany, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about organizational tips. However, these are going to be realistic organization tips for people who are not the most organized. I am a mom, I'm a wife, I volunteer at my church, I volunteer with my girls' extracurricular activities, but I am not the most organized person, and sometimes it can be a challenge to keep my life together. There are about 4 or 5 things that I've learned over the years that help me keep my somewhat disorganized, might even call it dysfunctional life, a little bit together. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned for the rest of the video. Tip number 1, create a routine that you can stick to each week that is realistic for you. A lot of times when we're developing routines for our day, for our week, we tend to overshoot and do things that we know we're going to set ourselves up for failure with. A better approach might be to evaluate what you're doing and see if you can make incremental adjustments that can help you build consistency over time. For example, my current routine is on Sundays, I attempt to meal prep. I may not hit it every Sunday. I try to work out at least 4 times a week. If I can exercise an extra day that week, I will. Try not to put too much pressure on myself, and so I've made a realistic schedule that I know I can stick to, and then as I get better at that and get more consistent, then I'm gonna start increasing more workout days. The routine does not have to be fitness related. It can really be anything. If you are trying to read more, maybe you say, I'm gonna read for 30 minutes a week instead of committing to 30 minutes a day. Start with 30 minutes a week and then start to build on that habit as you become more consistent. Tip number 2, learn the art of prioritization. Once I learned how to properly prioritize my tasks, my productivity increased tremendously. There is a method out there called the Eisenhower Matrix that helps you prioritize things based on importance and urgency. The first thing you want to do for the Eisenhower Matrix is make a list of everything that you have to do. Next, you want to go through each item and put them into one of 4 quadrants. Those quadrants are things that are important and urgent. Now, if it's important and urgent, those are things that you need to do, and you need to make sure to go ahead and get those done as soon as possible. The next quadrant are things that are important but not urgent. So those items, you need to schedule a time to complete them. So they're important enough that you need to get them done. However, it's not such a big deal or in a hurry, so you just need to go ahead and put some time on your calendar to get those things done. The next grouping are things that are not important but urgent. And those are the things that you need to go ahead and delegate to somebody else to do. For example, if I need something clean around the house, not necessarily important, we've got people coming over, so I need this done pretty quickly. But it's not important, I don't necessarily have to do it, so I'm gonna go ahead and delegate that to one of my kids to do.
Get somebody else to do it.
That's kind of an example. If you're at work and you're working on a project and it's not necessarily an important task that has to be done, but you've got a team of people and there's someone on your team who could easily get that task done, so why don't you go ahead and delegate that task to somebody else? Sometimes we want to control everything and have things done our way, when really, it's not important. Go ahead and let somebody else do it. You'll save yourself time and headache in the future. The last section are things that are not important and not urgent. Now those items, go ahead and get rid of them. If it's not important and not urgent, why is it on your list? That's my favorite category. And what you'll find is as you're going through each of these items, there's a lot more things that are not important and not urgent that you could have been gotten rid of. Tip number 3 is to use a task management tool. Now there's plenty of apps out there that can help you with organization, but I've found that the best tool is just my calendar. And it doesn't matter which calendar you use. I use Google Calendar and I also use the Apple Calendar, and I sync them all together. And once you have your tool, schedule everything that needs to get done. We just talked about the Eisenhower Matrix, things that I have to do that are important and urgent. I schedule it. I schedule a time to complete them. For example, my girls are in multiple activities, and if they have fees or money due for something, I'll make sure to put in my calendar when that money is due, and I'll schedule a time to make that payment. Another example is anything at work that I have to do. If there's something that needs to get done quickly, either I'm going to do it right then or I'm going to put time on my calendar in the near future to go ahead and get that task done. Also, things that are important and not urgent can also get scheduled. So I know that I have to review a file, but it's not due for another couple of weeks and I don't feel like doing it this week. So I'm gonna make sure I put some time on my calendar next week to get that task done before the deadline. The other great thing about scheduling everything is that if things happen and you don't necessarily get to that task, you can easily move it to another time slot. That's what I do all the time. Also, it'll help you realize, hey, can I delete this task? Find a tool, use the tool, and put everything on your calendar. Everything. I don't care what it is. Put it all on the calendar. Put workouts on the calendar. Put your reading schedule on the calendar. If it's on the calendar, it's more likely to get done. Tip number 4 is to reevaluate what you're doing, like all of your tasks, all of your activities, all of your volunteer work. Reevaluate it periodically and just make sure that it properly aligns with what your core values are. So for example, my main core values are faith and family. So I'm gonna make sure that the things that I'm working on a daily, weekly, monthly basis revolve around that. Volunteering with my church, volunteering with my kids' organization. Make sure me and my husband are having date nights and spending the proper amount of time together that we need to. Making sure we have proper family night, or make sure we're attending all of their events. Make sure I have all of their games on my schedule, all of their practices on my schedule. I'm not gonna lie, I miss some of them. And if there's something that is on your plate that doesn't align with your core values, you may want to consider backing away from that particular activity or consider replacing it with something that better aligns with what your core values are. Tip number 5 is to prioritize self-care. It really is important, particularly making sure that you get the proper amount of sleep, making sure that you are eating properly, making sure that you are moving your body on a consistent basis. You'd be surprised how much your productivity is affected by just those basic things. Making sure that you're doing things to keep your stress low. And it doesn't have to be expensive things. Like I mentioned, sleep is a form of self-care. Making sure you get the proper amount of sleep at night. It may not be necessarily 8 hours, but just making sure that you're getting restorative sleep. Another thing with self-care, taking care of your hair, your nails, and like I said, it doesn't have to be expensive. When you look good, you feel good, and you perform better. At least that works for me. Just be mindful of that and make sure that each week you are prioritizing and investing in your self-care. All right, so that is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed those tips. If you have any questions about anything that I discussed today, make sure to leave me a comment. I'll be glad to answer them. If you have any tips that I may not have mentioned, definitely leave them below. But the key is they got to be realistic, okay? Because there's a lot of people who are super organized and I am not one of them. So if you have tips that unorganized people can be successful at, definitely share them and I will see y'all next time. Thanks again. Bye.